वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. Tri-weekly sharing of thoughts, collective meditation, understanding something about our reality, um, how we bring a collective space, a space that is good for health, a space that is good for well-being, and a space where we can bring together um, understandings which are based on evidence, understanding which are based on science, which are based on practice. So it's the experiential elements of what we can share in order to make this transition in life that we're all going through um, as smooth as we can. Because ultimately, the nature of life is change. We cannot stop change. Change is what is the basis of all existence. But why does change become painful? Well, first there is a fear in change. So when there is a sudden threat to our circumstances changing, there's a level of fear. So that was happening a few weeks back. Now we want to move towards a stage. We are moving, remember, towards acceptance or a kind of a period of time. And and in order to do that, it's necessary to understand some of our psychological processes. So the nature of our resistance, the reason we resist change, is because of our attachments. Attachments are the root cause of our internal suffering. It could be attachment to anything. It can be attachment to belief systems. It can be attachment to people, attachment to how people make you feel, attachment to coffee, attachment to enlightenment, attachment to meditation. So we can have many different kinds of attachments. And when these attachments are brought under threat, then it kicks off an internal reaction. And that internal reaction then manifests as self preservation, manifests as anger, manifests as an infatuation. The moment you realize something you may lose, you kind of become infatuated by it. So there's this like obsession. So we can see that these are all psychological patterns. There's no problem. Everyone has them. These are inherent psychological DNA. These are inherent, and it is absolutely essential to understand the nature of the mind in relation to consciousness in order for us to recognize how the mind can distort certain facts and become obsessed with a story, and that story may be harmful. So it's an important element of self observation. So, attachments, if we can just open this out a little bit more. So attachments, there's a necessary part of our growth, our sense of self, attachment to parents, caregivers, etc., etc. But this habit is always under the assumption of some level of permanency, that life will always be permanent. And the current crisis has brought us to a point where many of us have become acutely aware about the fragility of life. Forget about attachments to other things, but fragility to your own sense of self, your life. And this fragility to your sense of self has triggered off with all of us a level of emotional reaction. So now we're finding that I think recent numbers, if you can ever trust these numbers, said there was an increase in terms of 30% more people having the symptoms of depression since this lockdown. There is evidence which is everywhere in studies, in research papers, which demonstrate that actually quarantining or isolating, particularly the health workers, has a huge impact on them. and it can last for years afterwards. And even though, the initial reaction may have been based on the wisdom of whatever scientists we wish to believe, um, the point is that the actual process of trying to save a life, we may have lost number of other lives, and we may have exaggerated the impact of the impact it's having on people's mental health. So this is really the motivation from the flame perspective to say, look, you know what? We found over the last 10 years that some of these practices, when put in place, have really helped a lot of people regain control of their health, regain control of their own sense of being. And yes, they still wobble. We all wobble. But you know what? We find the balance. And without meditation, it's a very difficult road to tread now. So please, if nothing else you can take from these talks, then the fact that meditation, how to meditate, we will keep introducing different methodologies to become present. And over the last 3 weeks, we have been working on how to introduce frequency based meditation, which frequency medicine. Now, let me give you a concept. Everything is vibrating. So, whether it's a coronavirus or whether it's the tree outside, everything has a vibration. If you can find that vibration and provide, sometimes you can deafen one note, zero, or it's amplified. So vibrations can be used in order to heal, and it may be even possible to put vibrations in water, which can heal as well. So this is an understanding which is becoming more prominent as our refinement in measuring equipment is getting there. So vibration, understanding how we need to take control of our health, and that's really what we're talking about here. Now, the changes that are upon us have impact now, and they are likely to have an ongoing impact. So there are consequences to do with our health, there are consequences to do with our lifestyle, our work, etc., etc. So one of the things that can motivate us to be productive in a productive way for ourselves is to start taking some control over the health, which is what we're doing here, but also then look after yourself and say, all right, so I want to learn ways of taking care of my health. I want to learn the kind of foods I need to be eating and maybe learn how to grow foods. So there is a level of productivity, creativity, and usefulness. Yeah. Because life cannot be predicted, and in any scientific way. But what we can do is look at patterns. We can look at patterns and we can infer. And so we can infer that what started off as fear, we have to go towards the other side in order to make sure that the fear, the anger, all that kind of stuff doesn't harm us. We get out. Why will they harm us? Is when we feel that, if we just listen to it as a message, that's fine. But the point is, we tend to live in those stories, and those stories create changes in your body, which will become very detrimental to you. So it's important to come out of that fear state. So, what motivates us towards this attachment is this sense of greed, of wanting some level of security. Enough is never enough. And I want you to bring to the point that life is a change. Look around you. Look around you. Everything that you see is in a constant process of change. Children grow up to be adults, adults grow up to be adults, elderly, and soon enough we disappear. That's just life. Nothing remains. Now, if that is the nature of existence and you test it out for yourself, then what do you think is the point of attachment? What do you think is a point of attachment? What do you think you will gain out of that? What do you think will be of benefit to you in terms of your health, well being, mental health, emotional health? Where are the pros? Where are the cons? Think it out for yourself. And if our attachments are based on need and not want, because with attachments, we are also comes with it hope. And with hope comes fear. Because the hope is that it may remain, that it will remain, that it never changes. That's the nature of the attachment. When we get attached to people and people change, we feel pain. When we get attached to people and people die, we feel pain. Um, this is the nature of life. Your experience of pain will also change, but you can replay it every day and continue with that pain. And there is a process to our grief as well. It's not something that happens quickly. But so I'm trying to suggest to you is that this is a good opportunity to look at our attachment in the nature of what is happening so we can begin to focus not on trying to keep a dream alive, but trying to take control of our sense of self so we are healthy for ourselves and we are healthy for those around us. So at the moment, we are finding through the center and through our connections that many people are feeling uncertain. They are feeling fearful. They are feeling nervous. But there is always hope. It depends the choices we make. If we remain in those processes, then our choices are tainted by the story we keep telling ourselves. We have to ask yourself this question right this moment. What is the most important thing to you? What is the most important thing to you? What is the most valuable thing that you've done today for yourself? How do you measure its value for yourself? And when we begin to ask these questions, we begin to gravitate towards those things that bring us joy, bring us a sense of connection, bring us a sense of being present, knowing that the mind creates these little spaces. It's okay, use the mind, but don't get used by the mind. And we begin to develop this level of tolerance. When we make the wrong choice, let me explain this to you in a story. It's a Sufi story. It is said that the mouse and the elephant fall in love and they want to get married. And everyone says, don't, you know what, you're not compatible. But, love is love. So they got married. And lo and behold, on the first night, the elephant died. Yeah, the elephant died. And the mouse then reflects and thinks to himself, for that one passion, I have a lifetime to dig a grave. For that one choice, I have now made that choice has become a lifetime for me to dig a grave. So it's basically saying what may have been happiness has now turned to tragedy. Why? Because was driven by content of the mind, was not driven by awareness. So you see the importance of becoming aware, taking time to research for yourself, find out what is real for yourself. And the only thing that is important in this moment right now is who are you, what is your truth, and what is your contribution to existence? What is your contribution to existence? Maybe just growing some plants, but what is it? Maybe feeding the birds. What is it? What is it? And it's taking our way of being so we feel integrated. Do you know what I mean? Start caring for the conscious around you. The native indigenous people that I've had the privilege to meet, we have a relationship with nature. And that relationship with nature is that they speak to it. There is something sentient there, there is something conscious. Now, the so-called civilized world, um, said, no, no, these people are primitive. But actually, if you look at it, they have the understanding, which is why medicine plants are used in order to connect to these plants. So they have an understanding. So they have a connection. If you feel part of the whole, you are part of the whole. If you feel that you are one fragile little ego trying to protect yourself, then trust me, you ain't going to get through the storm. It's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. Why? Because the ego has to be looked at and we have to transcend it. And what is the ego? Ego is effectively what we all have been conditioned to believe is the nature of reality. And the nature of reality is not what you perceive. It is precognitive. It is before you had the language. It is before you knew what a feeling was a feeling. So there is something quite primal, authentic, ancient about you being alive in this moment. And this is your opportunity, like my opportunity, to make the choice. And the choice is every so often, for a few moments, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, maybe even 1 minute, that you take the opportunity to connect to yourself. And in doing so, collectively, we are creating a sort of a fractal of consciousness, a fractal of consciousness that's not based on fear, that's not based on anger, isn't to do with hope, isn't to do with attachment. It's just a state of being. And in this state of being is embedded in time and space. This becomes, as we become more frequent in it, it begins to grow by itself. It becomes self existent, saiband. It becomes part of creation. This is how mantras work. That through repetition, they become part of you because they become a fractal. It may be a verbal, mental fractal, whatever it is. The point is, it grows by itself. And there is a journey that can be mapped from jap to a japa jap to virag to ardas and the nam. So there are 5 stages of when you use the mantra, which we will go through as well. So at this stage, really what we're doing is we're saying, all right, let's look at not just the meditation, but let's bring together what we know and what we see and what we experience in terms of the nature of reality, the nature of what's out there. And yes, our dreams, our illusions of what life was, when it kind of starts falling apart, yeah, of course we feel a bit worked up. It's okay. That's just the way it is. That doesn't mean that it was wrong. It's just the way it was. And it is. So let's be open. Let us be accepting that nature of reality is changing. There's something going on. If you sit by yourself, you know within yourself something feels a bit odd. Not the fact that you're at home, not going to work, etc., but something just feels a bit odd in the atmosphere, in the environment we're in. So as we become more present to ourselves, we become more sensitive to things around us. We begin to make the right choices. So we're not like the mouse. We don't think with our sense of illusion. We think with clarity, and mindfulness is the only way there. So we're not going into any visualization. We're not doing any of that stuff. We're not playing with the mind. We are stepping beyond the mind. We are stepping into a space of awareness. Why? Because that is your ultimate reality. And the more we begin to recognize that ultimate reality, the more that ultimate reality expresses itself through us in a way that life becomes flourishing. It's a flourishing life. It's a life of optimism. It's a life of hope, but not hope in which we have attachment to the result, but just the joy of being. You aren't going to get this chance again. None of us are. So either this is your time to see yourself, or as the Gurmat describes it, all of us are like a wild flower that blooms in the wilderness, and there is no one to know about it. Yeah, and then as a result, we are a flower. Each one of us is the flower. So your blooming makes all the difference. If you bloom on a mountain, or if you bloom in a vacuum in space, or if you bloom amongst those around you. We are all part of that. So by nurturing ourselves, by becoming present, by using sound as a way of becoming present and harmonizing our own inner space, we become not just using this moment to heal ourselves, to ensure that we go into a sense of balance, harmony, present moment. We bring a few things together, but we also become aware of the nature of existence, our experience as well. For that is where the that's where you lie. That's where your essence is. Your essence lies in knowing who you are, what you are, and not what you've read you are. Unless you've put your hand in the fire, you do not know what heat is. That's all there is to it. And only you can know yourself. You know, only you can know yourself. Only you are your own therapist. Only you have the answers within. You don't need anyone else. But you need a way of knowing when it's the mind that's giving you the answer or when it's your intuition, your heart that speaks to you. And the quieter you become, the more you listen, the more you hear. So, with our sound meditation, we are working with sound, but we're also working with awareness, meaning our sense of listening. Okay? So, if you remember, we'll begin with our meditation. So, if you remember, has so I'll remind for those people who weren't here, but basically, it's important to recognize this all the it's got to be a continuous understanding. So sound has four elements to it. There are four parts to sound. The first is the sound that you hear. Vyakri, it's called. Right? I'll refer to my book. So it's called Vyakri. The second is known a little bit further in your throat. The third is at your heart. And the fourth is near your belly button. So these are like the four elements of sound. Now, in order to recognize who you are, one of the most easiest, safest, and I will use the word safe, important, because there are methods which are not safe. This is a safe, tried and tested method, is to use sound. And as you use sound, you begin to go from the external, you go in towards in between, madham, you go deeper into knowing what the mind is doing. So you're saying it within your mind, and then you begin to listen. And so there's a point at which you have to lower your volume within yourself in order to get to that little pulse bit, and then you listen. And in that listening is something quite profound. It is the essence of this is the doorway, this is the door. Yeah, this is antargat, this is the inner heart. And the method is to refine your ego. Shabad Guru, Surt Tun Chela, Shabad, sound becomes your teacher. It will take you to what you need to know, wisdom. Shabad, Surt, your awareness becomes the disciple. You listen. So you can only listen through awareness. Yeah. So it's two things. It's one is sound and the other is the listening. So we try and bring our experience. We notice our experience on the sound and we notice the experience on the listening as well. So if we are ready, so we'll go through our meditation again. So if we're ready, close your eyes, just shake your shoulders a little bit so you feel a bit loose. And your mouth is closed. Now, if you can't breathe in through your nose, then of course you can breathe in through your mouth. And as you take a breath in, bring your focus to yourself. And your intention, set your intention. So your intention is simple, just to become present to yourself, just to step back from your sensations, step back from your thoughts, step back from your emotions, and just be present. A state of knowing that you are in a state of being. There's nothing to do. Yeah? Allow it to happen by itself. allowing it to happen by itself. So, this is your intention. In order to get to this point, you need to focus your attention on certain things. So, this is your commitment to yourself. So, I'm going to bring my focus as best as I can to things that are happening in the present moment. This includes my breath. So, bring your focus to your breath. Notice how the breath breathes by itself. Bring focus to the sensations. So, bring your focus to your body and notice the sensations. Perhaps the strongest ones are when you're sitting, the surface you're sitting on. Notice the sensations in your body. Sensations also happen in the present moment. Now bring your focus to your chest, how you feel. If you think about the pandemonium outside, you may change the feeling. If you think of someone that you love and care for, you change the feeling. So, right now, how do you feel? Are you in any suffering? Are you in any distress? Does it feel uncomfortable right now? Or are you comfortable with this moment? Acknowledge your experience. And on your next breath out, just listen to the sounds around you. Listening. Remember? Listening. Now follow the sound of this bell. Listening. Listening. Your ability to listen. Now bring your focus just beneath your nose and just sit with your breath for a few moments. Notice if your focus is distracted by your thoughts. If your focus is distracted, what distracts your focus? Don't struggle. Lightly, like you're standing on a bridge watching traffic going in, traffic going out. Stay with your breath. The sound we're going to use and have been using is the sound so hum. And if you bring your focus to your breath and listen to it, you'll notice those two sounds or similar to them. sound with a s and a sound with a h. This is your natural mantra. Your soham is an indication of your inner balance. So when we bring soham as a sound and we integrate this with our breath, we energize it, we increase its resonance. This helps us to develop a more balanced inner space. Our physiology becomes balanced. And the science behind that is simple. As you disengage from your flight fright response system by becoming present, this creates signals that affect your nervous system, your hormonal system, your blood pressure, heart rate, changing everything within you, simply stepping out of the flight fright response system, the reptile brain. And when we step out of it, there is no fear and there is no anger. Those are the two signposts. So we're going to go with the sound three times. We're going to say it aloud. Three times we're going to mutter it to ourselves. And a few times we're going to repeat it within our mind. And then we're going to synchronize it with our breath. So I'll talk you through it as best as I can. So the sound is so hum. So when you're ready, draw a slow, deep breath in. So hum. Just listen to it. And again. So and again. So now come and sit with your breath and see what's going on within you. Notice your experience. Are you having any thoughts? Are there any sensations in your body? Has a feeling arisen, taken away, added, changed? Now gently bring it to your tongue, and we're going to say soham, but we're going to only say it so we can hear it ourselves. So when you're ready, so you're just gently muttering it just to yourself, but you can hear it. Listen to it. And again, listen to it. Come and sit with your breath again. Notice what's going on in your body. Any changes? And now you say to yourself, so, and as you breathe out, and you listen to that. Pace it with your breath. Listen to it. So, And as you're listening to it, see if you can quieten the volume within yourself. So you're not saying it as loudly to yourself. And continue doing this, allowing the sound to get lower and lower, listening to it as best as you can, listening to it even when it's not there. Now we're going to just extend our listening. On your breath out, begin to gently opening yourself. And you're going to use the sound of this to merge yourself in that silence at the end. Allow it to take you as far as possible, deep within yourself, to the absolute. And one more time. Listening. Now bring your focus to your experience. Acknowledge it. Notice how you feel. Does the body feel still? Does the mind feel silent? And has your awareness expanded from where you began to where you are now? Notice everything around you keeps changing, but you remain still. Even your breath is changing, but you remain still. You're like this expression, like a flame Your essential self is the few. Everything else are just flames. Notice if there is any fear, any anger, or any attachment, yet you still are. Notice how timeless it feels right now, yet you are present. And your presence has no start, it has no end. One moment to another, it just continues, irrespective of what goes on around you. You can either be part of the presence or you can hold on to your attachments. The choice is always ours. Follow the bell once again and see if you can notice the stillness at the end. Gently bring your focus back to yourself. Notice your body. Notice wherever you're sitting or lying down. Notice that you can sense sensations in your body. You can sense your legs all the way down to your feet. Notice that your back is straight and upright. Your shoulders, arms, hands are relaxed. Your eyes is closed. Your mouth is closed. Your face is relaxed. And you're simply settling with your breath. As the breath comes in, you sense it in your body. As the breath goes out, you sense it in your body. When you hear the next bell, use this bell to draw a few deep breaths in. And then in your own good time, opening your eyes. But before you leave that place, know that you're safe. Know that you're looked after. And know you're here to serve your purpose. And give yourself a pat on the back for taking the time out and connecting. And the gratitude and the reverence for the life we all have. May we all be happy. May we all be healthy. May we all be peaceful. May we all be safe. Use the breath, a bell to come back to your breath. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us and sharing this moment. At least we can say we shared one thing. We shared a moment. And may it be a moment of peace that we share. Be safe and know you looked after. And a special happy birthday to my friend in Spain. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa. See you soon.